Sometimes we forget why we're here. It's easy to fall off track. These help us remember.
These battle scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
Growing up, I had a dream, something no one else could see. Tell me what it means when your faith is falling beneath your knees and you can't breathe. Everything you see reminds you of what you're not or something you won't be. You gotta take what you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians and choose to be an accountant because it's safe in a business. Not because they wanna do it, just because they heard it pays. And who the fuck wants to be poor knowing that's how we've been raised? Society is getting heavy, I can feel the weight. The pressure of success is like 100 million pounds of shame. And that's the reason I'm staying up late, trying to find a way to escape the stereotypes this day and age is making me feel like the only way I'll be happy is getting signed to a label and making money through rapping. I wanna share my emotion because this world is attacking the very principle of life that lets the people be happy. If you don't have a reason to breathe, why even live? These battle scars are impressions of everything that it is.
Don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battle scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
Now, if I had a voice that reached 100 million people, I'd tell them there's a reason that we're all created equal. Cause some decide to be great and some decide a sequel to an average person's life is simply what they want to be. So you make your decision, all I know is what I'm given. Won't define the life I lead or the way I dwell in existence. I've seen a greater image on the walls of where I'm living, and the words twisted and scripted remind me of something written. Faith is a gift that is given down to the people. If one believes it, one receives it. It's given if it is needed. Don't ever think you're trapped in a life that you never wanted. Your options are infinite, that's some mathematical logic. I'm not saying I'm a prophet, I'm speaking for what it's worth. These lyrics define my prayers and these battle scars on my church. Not saying I'm a prophet, I'm speaking for what it's worth. These lyrics define my prayers, these battle scars on my church.
Don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battle scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These
Whoa, wrong camera. 1 second. Holy crap, I forgot to put my camera up. 1 minute here. Oh my God, this is so funny. Hello, how are you? I forgot to bring my phone down and I need to set up my camera. So y'all talk amongst yourselves while I fix the camera situation. I am the most unprepared host in the entire frickin' world. I was telling DL Cummings that earlier today. He's like, how long do you need to prepare for your show? I go, long enough to go downstairs. And here you see me moving the camera around. Oh God, this is fun. Here we go. Oh, that's too, I need to make it a little higher. Here we go. Is this better? Yay! Oh my God. But now that we actually have a camera, I can't believe I forgot to hook up my camera. Oh God. This is a professional operation here, folks. But I want to show you my new shirt. Pigeon, I am a lie. Because my most popular video on my channel has nothing to do with the Libertarian Party. It's the video I have entitled Government Drone Malfunctioning, which is a bird truth video. And that is by far the most popular video on my channel. I don't know whether to be amused or to cry. You did get definitely behind the scenes access when I don't have a camera hooked up. I'm glad I had a spare one down here, or I would have had to start the show all over again while I went upstairs, because I normally film with my iPhone. I have it on a stand back here because the iPhone camera quality is great. But let's just get started now that you've really seen the bloopers. That was definitely one of the bloopers. I'm going to probably end up re-uploading this video and cutting that out. My God. All right, everyone, let's do the necessary grifting. I am trying to meet my February goal. I did have someone who upped their subscription, or patron, I guess you would call it. I haven't been able to change the closing credits yet, but you know who you are. Thank you very, very much. And those of you who are my $25 a month patrons, only one of you so far has ever claimed your free t-shirt. That is a perk you are entitled to. So please, if you are a $25 a month patron, you get to claim one a year. So please, if you were one in 2021, please claim your 2021 shirt. And particularly if you're going to go to Reno, claim a Reno Reset shirt or something. I budget to be able to fulfill the donor bonuses. So please, I had somebody the other day claim Already Against the Next Mandate shirt. So please, just get in touch with me on Patreon through messages. Let me know what you would like, your size, and your mailing address, and I will get it right out to you. And I also did a special request. That person, I didn't have Already Against the Next Mandate on a mug, got it on a mug for her. So if there's something I don't have, I'll see if I could do it for you. And for those of you who aren't patrons, please consider doing so. I truly appreciate it, and it does allow me to do more libertarian activism and libertarian education. If you go to tinyurl.com/pinkflamemerch, that is where you find the merchandise you can claim. And David Davis says, what's the schedule in Reno? I'm an alternate. I don't know if the agenda has been posted yet, but the convention agenda, at least the order of operations, is in our convention standing rules. So unless it gets amended, that's what it will be. We will cover that probably in another show. And I don't know, somebody is claiming that you're not an alternate. Okay. I'm not getting in the middle of this argument. But welcome everyone. Before we get started, what else did I want to cover? Down in the low bar, I got to do all of my grifting. Definitely have to do all of my grifting. So become a patron, please. Also, super chats. Stephen, you never claimed yours. Only one person has ever claimed their t-shirt, and it's a lady. And unless there's something about you that you want to tell me, and not that there's anything wrong with that, I don't think you're a lady. So, yes, that was that grifting. Also, super chats are always welcome. All super chats go to my campaign fund, and any campaign donor, whether you do it through super chat or through my GoFundMe, you are entitled to see a copy of my campaign accounting. With the backup receipts, because I run a fully transparent campaign. And I loved how somebody took one of my not fans, took my grifting comments really seriously and said something, I guess because Texas got into a bunch of controversy. And listen, I'm actually proud of Texas for doing this. Maybe I'm going to get some hate for this, but Texas invited some non-libertarians to come talk and be challenged by libertarians and to challenge libertarians. They invited Vaush, who's as far left as you can get, and Matt Walsh, he's probably not as far right as you can get, but he's pretty damn right. And so somebody made a snarky comment like, oh, is Karen Ann Harlos not doing her grifting tour or something on Texas? And I loved what somebody said to him. Somebody said to him, I'm not going to name who the hater is because I'm not going to give them any oxygen, but a friend of mine said, really, a grifter? She's the only politician I know that has ever given a refund on unspent funds, which I have done in the past. So you're like water off a duck, baby, like water off a duck. So yes, please contribute to my grifting. And down in the low bar, you'll see my Amazon affiliate support links. If you start any Amazon search from that, you don't have to buy the featured product. If you buy a qualified product, you help me without it costing you a thing. Also, my Amazon wish list. There's also altcoins, Bitcoin, Litecoin. I've got some kind of crypto links down there. I always forget what is down there. And I think that's about it. Mostly I'm encouraging super chats because I'm trying to raise my campaign funds. I had a campaign meeting right before this one with my campaign manager, DL Cummings. He's going to be going to a couple conventions, so it's not just sending me to conventions. Conventions I can't make. DL is going to try to make some of them, which is, there's a low bar in the YouTube feed. It's the description. It's called the description. YouTubers, it's the YouTube lingo to call it the low bar. It's the description, has all of my links. All right. Vouch is, if I really was a grifter, all I would do is Vouch content. Is like I would do a show every day rebutting Vouch because I would get views out my rear end. Like if all I cared about was views. Like I know what YouTubers to cover if all I cared about was views, but that's not it. I do what I enjoy, and I don't enjoy listening to Vouch. I don't enjoy listening to Matt Walsh either. I'm sure if I had a channel that was just dedicated to rebutting Vouch and Matt Welsh, I probably would have 100,000 subscribers. But that's not what I'm all about. But I will be at the Texas convention. Porkfest, Dennis, I don't know because of my job. I'm taking so much time off to go to these conventions that my job is losing patience with me. And when I was hired, I told them that this extended time off would end in May, and Porkfest is in June. I thought it was Matt Walsh. My bad then. I don't know who Joe Walsh is. Am I an idiot? I thought it was Matt Walsh. Who's Joe Walsh? I thought it was to balance out Vouch. Well, okay, Vouch is going to be there, which should be fireworks. Listen, I think that was a smart marketing decision. Libertarians are going to have fun with that. Oh, he's the Eagles. Okay. Is he a politician at all, or is he going to be singing the Hotel California and not let anyone out of the convention? Okay, well, let's get on to the topic because I think that's what most of you are here for. And I would love to say to you that I'm so sad that I have to cover that Chris Luchini is just not just not. But I would be lying if I were to say I was sad to do that. Cheers. But before we get started, let's talk about unintended consequences, shall we? As most of you know, I'm a religious person. So I tend to see the hand of God in everything. And the funny thing is, with the LNC removing me, I became their worst nightmare. Because I would not have been able to help all of these affiliates that are getting screwed over with the LNC not doing a damn thing about it if I were still secretary. Because it would have just been too much interference with the autonomy of an affiliate. The only reason that I am able to help Delaware and Massachusetts and now New Mexico, and a lot of the work I'm able to do now is because those bastards removed me unjustly. Karma is a real, real bitch. So, Mr. Luchini, I don't think there's any secret that I'm not his biggest fan. However, without being his biggest fan, I'm going to make every attempt to be fair. And New Hampshire, of course. New Hampshire's what I got removed for, though. That's why I didn't have New Hampshire on the list, because New Hampshire was the one that's what I got removed for. They'll lie and say it wasn't for that. Actually, there's 3 main reasons I got removed. 1, because I called out their COVID cowardice. 2, because I was Mises friendly. I wasn't even a Mises Caucus member. And if you doubt me on that, I can prove it. Go look at the alleged folder of evidence against me, and about 10 of them are posts of me supporting Mises. Why was that in a folder of evidence against me if I wasn't being removed for being Mises friendly? And New Hampshire. And they admitted it because they said I caused the departure of the chair. That's a feature, not a bug. When corrupt people resign from their positions, and he still hasn't even been censured, even though he destroyed party property on the way out. That goes to show you. That goes to show you, doesn't it, where their priorities are. You have a guy that destroyed all of his emails before he left, and the LNC can't even bring themselves to censure him. And you wonder why I call them corrupt. And you want to know something? There's about 6 of you who aren't corrupt. Why haven't you moved to censure him? Seriously, you won't win. And some people think you shouldn't bring a motion you don't think you can win. I bring motions on principle. That's just how I am. And yes, Dennis Pratt, I got the hero's welcome at PorkFest, and that was one of the highlights of my life. And I'm not exaggerating with that. So I'm going to attempt to be fair to Mr. Luchini here. Let me say some good things about Mr. Luchini first. Mr. Luchini has done a very good job at recruiting national memberships in New Mexico. When I last did the calculations and you did percentage of increase, New Mexico was on top. Colorado and California were tied for second. But New Mexico was on top. Chris Luchini can be very charming. And he's got a very nice smile. And that's about it. He's not a good regional representative. In fact, he's a terrible regional representative. I didn't get along with Francis Went either, but he was a much better regional representative than Chris Luchini is. For one, you cannot be a fair regional representative if you're the state chair of one of the states. Just like you cannot be a fair national chair if you're the state chair of one of the biggest affiliates in the country. Because nationals' interests do not always align with any individual affiliate. And Region 1's interests do not always align with New Mexico's interests. Because it's by majority, sometimes by 3/4. And there will be times when the state you chair does not have the same interests as the rest of the region, particularly in a region as large and diverse as Region 1. But the delegates, well, no, actually the delegates didn't really, he ended up getting in because Francis resigned. But anyway, I don't think chairs of an affiliate should be a regional representative. And that was proven in the removal vote. Chris Luchini never bothered to tell anyone that the only actual yes, remove her vote came from New Mexico. And guess who cast it? Him. So he got 2 votes. One as regional representative and one as chair of New Mexico. The majority of the votes were no's. The other ones that he counted as yeses were, we don't really want to hear about national drama, do what you want. That's not an affirmative yes vote to remove a popular officer. There was only one actual yes vote, and that was his own state. And if you think that is ethical, there's something wrong with you. And then he tried to politically bribe the state chair of Washington, not with money, but with political favors. And that is corruption. And I filed a formal complaint, and Whitney Bilyeu has yet to investigate it. So let me count the ways of Mr. Luchini's questionable activities. I already gave you one. He never's the wrong word. Let me take that back. I said I was going to try to be fair. He rarely consults with his state chairs. I used to be Region 1 representative. My Region 1 reports might have been a bit on the long side. They were about 120 pages. But you want to know why? Because I actually represented Region 1. I didn't send an email out to the state chairs and say, tell me what's going on in your region. You want to know what my happy ass did? I got on the phone with them and talked with them for 2 or 3 hours every quarter to find out what was going on in their state and figured out how I can help them. And before I called them, I went to the legislature site. I saw what bills were coming up in their state to see how I could help advise the state chair. I looked up their voter registrations. I looked to make sure their ballot access was secure. Go look at one of my regional reports and see how I worked my ass off for Region 1. And that's why the state chairs who were the state chairs at the time I was Region 1 are extremely loyal to me. Ever since me, you want to know what the Region 1 representatives do? They send an email going, write me a status report as to what is going on in your state. What? That's not their job. That's your job. And I always consulted with my state chairs on important votes. And if a vote required a 2/3 vote of the LNC, I required a 2/3 vote of my state chairs to pass. So say there was a resolution, I would ask my chairs. And the LNC required 2/3, I would require 2/3. I certainly never would have voted to remove an officer with one affirmative yes vote. And people go, oh, but you voted to remove Arvin. I did, because 2/3 of my state chairs told me to, affirmatively. I didn't have any vote your consciences or do what you want. If somebody said that to me, I put them down as an abstain. I did not think I had carte blanche to vote to remove somebody that the delegates elected. So, Wayne Harlos is the state chair of Colorado. He's my husband. Obviously, I am sleeping with the state chair of Colorado. And he gets irritated that Colorado, who is the state with the most national members in Region 1, it's the largest state in Region 1, that our opinion does not get solicited. So he wrote to Chris Luchini back when they were voting on canceling the meeting about Massachusetts and said, why did you not ask our opinion on this? So you want to know what Luchini's response was? To threaten Arizona. Why did he threaten Arizona? Because he knew I was the parliamentarian for the Mises Caucus in Arizona, and that there was a challenge of the ruling of the chair, and he figured he would create some controversy about me in Arizona to try to get at my husband, the state chair of Colorado, through me. He threatened a state that he's supposed to represent. He threatened, oh, you really want to consider challenging Massachusetts delegates? How about I just suggest that we challenge Arizona's delegates? That was the threat. He's supposed to be representing Arizona. I did a whole show on what happened in Arizona. There is absolutely no cause whatsoever for Chris Luchini to be sticking his nose into a valid, clean decision of the delegates at their convention, and to use that to threaten them was absolutely ridiculous. But what people didn't know at the time he made that threat is he knew he was in trouble. This wasn't public yet. It's becoming public now. Turns out Mr. Luchini has his own little paranoia about the Mises Caucus as well. At least it appears that way. Here is where I'm going to speculate. I will be very clear when I'm speculating, and I will be very clear when I'm telling you facts. Let me take a look at the comments before I go forward a bit here, though, in case there's any more background that I need to do before I go into the bullshit that just went down in New Mexico. Okay, I have my comments off to the side here, but I'm going to pull them up here so I can see them quickly. Oh, A. Blair Dunn says Luchini cheated in the vote to be reelected chair. I don't know anything about that, but I would be very interested in the details. Yep, he doesn't consult with the chairs. And Justin says, how does Luchini still have a job at this point? What states are against removing him? You're going to be very surprised on what I have to say. I'm not in favor of removing Chris Luchini. I know what it's like to be removed. I've got great sympathy for that. We are so close to convention. Let the delegates do it. However, the threat to Arizona may have pushed me over the line. But generally, no, I'm not in favor of removing anybody. The only way at this point I would be in favor of removing Chris Luchini is if the Region 1 chairs called a special caucus of Region 1 members and did a recall election. That's the only way. Let the delegates decide. Isn't that funny that I'm giving him a lot more courtesy than he ever gave me? So what did Chris Luchini do? I wasn't out looking to see if New Mexico had any funny business going on, because honestly, I didn't think they did. I know there's been controversies in the past. I have some good friends in New Mexico who feel very disenfranchised about what happened a few years ago. That's water under the bridge. I'm not a New Mexico member. I stayed out of all of that. But a few, maybe 3 weeks ago, I got a call from an eager new party member, brand new party member, who doesn't know Roberts, doesn't know the ins and outs of the party. He just knows that he's a libertarian and he wanted to volunteer and help. So he got in touch with New Mexico. He's in New Mexico. There isn't a Mises invasion in New Mexico. New Mexico happens to be one of those states that don't have very many Mises members. So even if you were one of those people with Mises Caucus derangement syndrome, New Mexico is not a state you had to worry about. But this member calls me and says, I'm simplifying here. They were referred to me. I don't want somebody to go, oh, he didn't directly call her. He was referred by somebody else. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. I'm simplifying this because y'all don't need to know all of the frickin' steps about how this person got in touch with me. So, and said, something doesn't seem right to me here. He said, I got in touch with the state party in December. Next thing you know, and he either said he was Mises or somehow it got figured out he was Mises, and apparently people panicked. This is speculation, this part. Now I'm going back to fact. And he goes, all of a sudden, I get an email about a special constitutional convention to amend the delegate requirements in January. And I said, interesting. Some states you're allowed to do that. That might have been perfectly within the rules. Some things you can do within the rules aren't necessarily the best look, but you're allowed to do it. So I said, let me take a look at the bylaws. let me take a look at the situation. And if I think there's something there, I'm willing to represent you as your parliamentarian for free under one condition. If there's there, I get to go public with it. If you want everything to remain confidential, I'll give you some advice, but I can't represent you. Those are my conditions, because if there's something that is more corruption, the party needs to know about it. And I can refer you to somebody else if those terms aren't acceptable to you. And he was fine with it. In fact, he was emailing me asking me when I was going to go public. And I said, when I have time. Because this hasn't been number one on my priorities, believe it or not. And Justin says, from what I've heard, that member actually told Luchini he was Mises. I think he did, but I'm not positive about that. I don't want to say as fact things I don't know as fact. But this is just an eager young person, eager to be involved. So he went to the Constitutional Convention and was just wondering what was up. And I got contacted after this was all over. Now, why in the world would you think in January, with a convention that's coming up in May, that you had to all of a sudden amend the requirements to be a national convention delegate in New Mexico if you weren't scared of something? With everything else that's going on, this is speculation, but I think it's pretty reasonable speculation that he was worried about some kind of Mises takeover. So he decided he was going to make it harder to become a national delegate. We're going to look at what the bylaws were. We're going to look at the change. Right now, I'm going to give you numbers that are off the top of my head. That might be a little off, but I'll give you the accurate numbers as we go on. I think it used to be that there was only one requirement. Well, there was two requirements to be a national delegate from New Mexico. You had to be, don't let the word caucus confuse you here. You had to be a caucus member. That's what they call their dues-paying members. So instead of using the word caucus here, because I don't want it to get confused with Mises Caucus, I'm just going to say a dues-paying member. And their dues are quite steep in New Mexico, considering they're not the wealthiest state in the country. The dues are like $65 a year. Most state dues are like $25 a year. That's a high price tag. But anyway, so you had to be a dues-paying member or a member of the state committee. They have ex officio delegate seats, I believe. And you had to be a dues-paying member a certain number of days before. I think it was 60. Before the state convention. Yeah, it was 60. So they have this emergency special convention. And they changed the seasoning requirement from 60 days to, I believe, 150 days. After the 150 days had already passed. Can anyone say ex post facto? That is not a good look. And they added, not only do you have to pay dues, you have to give a certain number of hours of volunteer time. Now, I don't think requiring volunteer time is necessarily a bad idea. I do think adding it at the 11th hour when you're right in this, 5 months before convention is a little suspicious. But, yes, JJ and I talked about this. So, my first instinct was it can't be right to make an ex post facto change. But it turns out you're allowed to do that. I learned something. You're allowed to make an ex post facto change. I think you look like a real shitheel, but you're allowed to do it. I don't think you should be. I disagree with Roberts there. I have a question though, JJ. It's an order under Roberts, but Roberts isn't their parliamentary authority. They don't have a parliamentary authority. So they're under general parliamentary law. Is ex post facto allowable under general parliamentary law? I don't know the answer to that. I'm going to assume it is, because Roberts is pretty much the gold standard. And I think you're pretty safe in saying if it's allowed under Roberts, it's probably allowed under general parliamentary law. So I told the member, as shitty as that sounds, you're allowed to do it. And I was surprised. So I'm going to tell you right off. But I took a look at the bylaws, and I looked at the notice requirements. And it turns out Mr. Luchini fudged on the notice requirements. Now that is something you're not allowed to do. So let's take a look at the New Mexico bylaws, shall we? Let me first pull them up on my screen. And let me share my screen with you guys. Okay, so the latest bylaws, you notice it still says March 27th, 2021. They amended their bylaws January 6th. Why aren't they updated on the website yet? This is going to come into play. We're now over a month later. I realize we're all volunteers, but your website should be up to date. Maybe not the next day, but I would think over a month later, when you're coming up on convention and you're talking about the requirements to be a national delegate. Now, this is speculation. I think they're not updated on the website on purpose. That's speculation. So let's look. I hate the way they put the numbers on the side like the old edition of Roberts and like a deposition transcript, because when you block and copy, it like pulls those numbers in. So let's look up. 1 second. I'm trying to do a word search here. National Convention. Okay, delegates to the Libertarian Party National Convention. In order to serve as a delegate from the Libertarian Party of New Mexico to the National Convention of the Libertarian Party, an individual, is it not showing up on the, oh, it is showing up on the screen. I'm getting confused here. An individual must have been a caucus member in good standing for 90 days. So it was 90 days preceding the state convention. I thought it was 60. I told you I didn't have the numbers exactly right, but that we would get to it. Now we are. At which the delegate is elected to serve at the national convention. This requirement may be waived for a particular candidate by a two-thirds vote of the convention. Okay, so that was the standard before. Now, when can you amend in New Mexico your governing documents? So let's look up amendments. It says about the platform, it can be amended by the Central Committee. And bylaws may be added or deleted by a two-thirds vote of the delegates voting at any state convention. So it can't be amended by the state committee, but it can be amended by a two-thirds vote of the delegates. That logo isn't on the site. That logo is an overlay on my screen. I could remove that if that's distracting. Let me remove that if that's hiding. Let me find here my overlays. 1 second. Overlays. Okay, it shouldn't be there anymore. Okay. So let's look at how conventions are called, since we know now it can only be amended at convention. Okay. Here's where it allows, we know they can have an annual convention, which is coming up on March 6th, but the executive committee can also call special conventions to nominate candidates for special elections or for other urgent purposes. So they can't just call it for any reason. It has to be an urgent purpose. Now, obviously, urgent is subjective. But I would think if a member of the Libertarian Party of New Mexico asked what was the urgent purpose for the calling of a convention, that they have a right to have an answer to that from their executive committee, don't you? No reason at all. Basically, the board told this member, we don't have to justify to you why we thought this was urgent. Which, of course, then leaves it very much open to speculation. If he didn't want me to guess why they thought this was urgent, they could have just said. But he's refused to answer why it's urgent. And it certainly is in the eyes of the beholder. But the beholder should certainly be able to tell a member to whom they're accountable what they saw in their eyes. The member might not agree it's urgent, but they should at least be able to say what they thought was urgent, even if the member doesn't agree, rather than refusing to answer. Okay, so let's then look at notice. Okay, conventions and candidates. Notice. The secretary shall notify each caucus member, that's a dues-paying member, of the dates, time, and public place of state conventions, which would include any special conventions, and shall cause to be published on the LPNM website notice of the state convention at least 30 days prior to the date of the convention provided. This notice shall include the information that all caucus members must be in good standing 30 days prior. This is where I got the 30 days from. Oh, okay. That's where I got 30 days. It's 90 days to be a delegate. It's 30 days to be a national delegate. It's 30 days to be a state delegate. And to allow the secretary to validate the qualifications of the delegate. So 30 days notice is required for any convention. That's not terribly burdensome. And so it gives you a time frame, 30 days, and it tells you how. You publish it on the website. That's not burdensome at all. That's actually pretty easy. Let's go back to the New Mexico website. We know that they had a convention on January 6th. Get involved. Let's see. You see anything about any conventions here? Nope, nothing. So let's look under events. A convention is an event. And there is Mr. Luchini. He is a cutie pie. I mean, he's got a really cute little smile. Okay, so we know this was January 6th. Huh. There's January 6th. I don't see anything, do you? I don't see any notice. But you want to know what else I don't see notice to? We know that their annual convention is March 6th. Huh. Doesn't look like he even provided notice of the annual convention. Now, I want to be clear. I'm just making a note of this. The member in question isn't raising this as an issue. I'm just telling you that it doesn't seem like he's particularly eager to have new people who might just be visiting the website to see how to get involved, not too eager to let them know that there's a state convention happening on March 6th. He hasn't given notice. They picked January 6th because that was the last of the 90 days. There actually was a good faith reason to pick January 6th, Adrian, and I'm going to give them credit there. I'm just giving you all the background. So, no notice of the state convention either. But the member's not raising that as an issue. I'm not a New Mexico member. It's not my business. I'm just noting it. But what the member did raise as an issue is there was no notice given of the January 6th convention. But sometimes, they stick notice up on the front page. They don't put it under events. So let's just take a look at the front page here. Nope, it's all under events, where you go and you see all events. Nothing about the state convention, nothing about the special convention. I went to the Wayback Machine just to make sure there wasn't some big-ass notice up there in December telling everybody about this January 6th convention. There was nothing. So I said to the member, I don't want to make an assumption. Will you please write your board and ask them when notice was provided, when and how notice was provided of this special convention, and to ask them what the urgent need was. And the response that the member got back was that all dues-paying members were notified by email 15 days prior. So it wasn't even 30, and it wasn't posted on the website. So they failed both the method of notice and the time frame of notice. So, upon the complaint of any member, what happened at that convention is invalid. Notice, you can't waive notice. Now, my general view, I'm going to be a bit of a heretic here, and I didn't used to be a heretic on this, because there'll be some people in Colorado who are going to go, you were a real bitch about us breaking notice one time. Yeah, I was. I probably shouldn't have been. We all have activities we regret. Our convention once missed notice by 5 days, and I caused the whole convention to be canceled because they didn't give proper notice. There was a lot of really ugly shit going on in Colorado at that time. And now I wouldn't do that. We're all volunteers. Missing something by 5 days. But missing it by 15 and not even posting it on the website ever. And, okay, no, it's invalid. And the answer the member got as to what was the urgent need was the, how did he put it? He just said, basically, as JJ said, urgent is in the eyes of the executive committee. But nobody disputed that. He just wanted to know what it was. Not to argue about it, just wanted to know what it was. So I said to the member, my initial instinct was wrong. They are allowed to do a ex post facto thing. It's not a good look. It's a shitty move, but they're allowed to do it. You can shame them for it, but it's legal. It's parliamentary legal. However, they didn't give proper notice. Now, what Chris Luchini's excuse, and we're going to go over the letters I wrote and the responses we got back. Chris Luchini's excuse was that this person didn't become a member until after the 30 days anyway, so he can't complain about lack of notice because he wasn't a member at the time anyway, or something to that effect. Basically, he wasn't harmed. He doesn't have to be harmed. He can be speaking out on behalf of absentees. He can be speaking out on behalf of members in general. He doesn't have to be personally harmed. Chris Luchini's other excuse was the member did not raise an objection at the convention itself and he attended. You don't have to raise an objection on lack of notice. That's one of the things, because it's a continuing breach, you do not have to raise it at the time. And this is a brand, when people, I got into this in California once. I helped write a judicial committee appeal in California, and some people were really upset at me. And one of the arguments made was that a member didn't raise a timely point of order. And it was true. No member stood up and said, point of order. Because most members, whether or not you think that they should, you're going to say ignorance of the law is no excuse or anything like that. Most members do not know parliamentary procedure. And they do not know the magic words. But a member did get up and object. They just did so very inartfully and didn't use the words point of order. But it was, for all intents and purposes, a point of order without using those words. And ended up winning that point on Judicial Committee appeal. So you got this brand new kid. He doesn't know parliamentary procedure from his elbow. He didn't know he could object. He didn't know he could object until he was advised that he could. And hello, Kaylin. I'd love to see some of my critics here. I would encourage you to go to the very beginning of this show where I complimented Chris Luchini on some of his successes. You're welcome. Okay. So, no notice. It's null and void. It's absolutely unenforceable. It's null and void. So, when we found this out, the member asked me if I could assist him with this, and I said that I could. So, let's go back to sharing my screen once I pull up my first letter. Okay, my first letter was written on January 27th. Objection! Speculative. You're killing me with that. Okay, so I'm going to need to, hold on, I'm going to see if I can make this bigger. And I don't really want to read out the whole thing. Yeah, I'm not going to put it up on the screen because I'm going to go over the highlights of it because you guys, I'm sure, don't want to see everything. So this was January 27th, and it was a letter to the Executive Committee of the Libertarian Party of New Mexico. And when I sent it, I carbon copied openly the member so that the Executive Committee could see that I had the authority of the member. And I basically told the Executive Committee that I had been retained as an advisory parliamentarian for this member. And regarding the alleged special constitutional convention that took place on January 6th. According to the chair's responses to his questions, I'm not using the member's name, even though it is on the LNC. I don't even know if it's on the LNC list. I'm not using his name, and that's another reason why I'm not projecting this, because I'm not looking to make this guy a target. Notice was emailed out at the earliest 15 days prior to that event. The chair did not specify to whom the notice was mailed. Later on, he specified that it was to the dues-paying members. This alleged special constitutional convention is null and void, as being in blatant violation of the current Constitution and bylaws, which specify that notices of any state conventions, and there is no differentiation made therein between special and regular conventions in this notice requirement, must be made at least 30 days prior to any convention and must be published on the party website. I might end up reading the whole thing. The first letter is not very long. The minimum notice was not provided, nor was the notice published on the website. Failure to comply with required notice is absolutely fatal, and thus any changes passed at that alleged convention are of no effect. Further, the member asked specifically what circumstances the Executive Committee determined to be urgent to justify the calling of a special convention. The chair's response simply said it was the perception of the Central Committee, but did not say specifically what facts undergirded that perception. The Central Committee should be answerable to its membership and should be able to give the reasons behind its perceptions. I would also note that according to the LPNM Constitution and Bylaws, it is the Executive Committee, not the Central Committee, which has the authority to call a special convention, though since one is a subset of another, this distinction is only included here for the sake of being precise. Please acknowledge that the actions taken at that alleged special convention are null and void, as the Constitution and bylaws were not followed in the notice requirements. If the Executive Committee does not do so, there's a right of a member to request a judicial counsel. This request has to this day been ignored. A member made a request and it's been ignored. Then please put the request for judicial counsel before the Central Committee. If all the members of the Central Committee were involved in the decision, it seems impossible for them to be impartial in the exact same way that the Executive Committee is disqualified from portions of this process pursuant to your Constitution and bylaws. I look forward to hearing from the Executive Committee within 3 days of this communication. If a meeting is required of the Executive Committee or Central Committee to make this decision, then a notification of the meeting date within 3 days of this communication will be considered a timely response as long as the meeting is set within the shortest possible time frame. The member intends upon pursuing this in every avenue available to him, including the LNC, but would prefer to handle this quickly and privately as possible. And I signed it. And the member was carbon copied. And the member approved. He got a copy of this before it was sent and approved it. Then I got a response, not back from the chair, but from the first vice chair, who basically said, "We don't have to talk to you. You're not an attorney. We don't have to talk to you." So I wrote back, "Dear Mr. Chappelle, thank you for your prompt email. However, you are operating under some fundamental misassumptions. You are correct. I am not an attorney. I in no way made any such claim. Parliamentarians advise people thousands of times a day, and that is all I am doing in this instance, as I have done numerous times in the past. This is not at all an unusual situation. I understand that the term general parliamentary law can be confusing, but it's a term of art, not of legality, referring to the body of interpretation that is binding in societies such as the Libertarian Party of New Mexico that have not adopted a specific parliamentary authority." And then I go on to talk more about general parliamentary law, and that's not really, you don't need to be bored with that. I went on to say, "You are correct, however, in saying that you have no legal obligation that I'm aware of, other than honoring the professional request of your member to communicate directly with me. In that case, you can respond to him. He will send your response to me to craft a response, and then we'll send my response to you, and so on. That seems unnecessarily cumbersome, but if that is what the Executive Committee wishes, we can certainly proceed in that manner. You can see that your member is copied here, and I run every communication by that member prior to sending to you. If I may be a bit bold, I would recommend that the Executive Committee obtain the advice of a parliamentarian in this manner because you are fundamentally not apprehending the issues I raised. Yes, your member received an email about the special convention 1 day prior to the event. Mere notification is not the issue here. The issue is the number of days and the method of notice as required by your Constitution and bylaws for all members, not just, and I put in this member's name. The requirements of notice embodied in any society's constitution and bylaws are sacrosanct and unwaivable. The fact that this member was also present is also not the issue. While most violations must be objected to at the time of the breach or be waived, notice requirements are not such an issue, as they constitute a continuing breach of the Constitution and bylaws which cannot be waived. I refer you to RONR 12th edition 23.6 and 25.10, which embody these principles, unless you are claiming that every single potential voting member of the LPNM was present. And I then quote 25.10 and 23.6. of Roberts. Thus, I reiterate my request for the relief outlined in my prior communication. If the Executive Committee wishes to send its response to the member who will forward to me, that is also appropriate. I look forward to your response. Again, he wishes to resolve this as privately as possible, but is intending upon pursuing every remedy if that proves impossible. To put things simply, the Executive Committee cannot ignore its Constitution and bylaws with impunity, and any such actions done in violation of that document is null and void. It is particularly problematic when that action involves the qualifications of national delegates, as that is cause for a legitimate challenge to the entire delegation at the National Convention. This is why he threatened Arizona, by the way. It was to try to get back at me for this letter. He knew that the chair of Arizona is one of my best friends. That's why, and speculation, admittedly. This party has lately seen a lot of very questionable behavior on the part of state parties in an attempt to discriminate against a very specific group of members. Without a response to the question as to why the Executive Committee felt it was urgent to take this action, it leaves the question open to speculation, which may be admittedly entirely off base. Your member, I put in his name, looks forward to the timely response of the Executive Committee. No response was ever forthcoming. So then the member forwarded this to the entire LNC. Mr. Luchini responded with the same things he's already said before. The member was given notice a day before. He was there. He didn't object. Things I had already responded to. So we then responded with one last time, and this is where things stand right now. So this one I'm going to put up on screen because this is probably going to be publicly shared to the LNC list, and you all will be able to see it there. So let me share my screen here. 1 second. Okay, you're still seeing that. Okay. Members of the LNC. Mr. Luchini has not correctly or fully represented the situation. Most of the issues were already, well, this is going to be publicly shared. His name's on this, and he already knew it was going to be publicly shared. So now I will say the name because I forgot that we had already given permission for this. Mr. Luchini has not correctly or fully represented the situation. Most of the issues were already addressed in the earlier communications, which will be bullet pointed here rather than repeated. Notice requirements are not waivable. It is not required to object at the time because they constitute a continuing breach of the bylaws. Mr. Askins was copied on and approved the correspondences. Mr. Luchini could have responded directly to Mr. Askin and chose not to, instead choosing to ignore communications explicitly authorized by a party member. Number 3, it is not up to a recipient to accept representation chosen by someone else because Mr. Luchini said, we don't accept the fact that Ms. Harlos is representing him as a parliamentarian. And that's why I said it's not up to you to accept that. It is up to the person being represented, but the recipient can certainly choose to respond directly to the person represented, which was only done in the first communication. The second communication was completely ignored, but instead blame was placed on the member who is at a distinct power imbalance in this whole exchange. Brand new party members cannot be expected to know even the basics of parliamentary procedure, never mind be expected to have to deal with much more knowledgeable and experienced leadership without any assistance. Such assistance should be encouraged so that new members can learn and grow to be the leadership of tomorrow. Mr. Luchini did not correctly represent the fullness of impact of the changes. As he stated, there were 2 changes. 1, lengthening the seasoning period. And just so you know, he says no members were harmed because there were no new memberships between the longer period of time and the shorter period of time. As he stated, there were 2 changes. 1, lengthening the seasoning period, and the other, adding a brand new additional requirement of volunteer hours to be fulfilled within 2 months of the state convention. Here is the original language, which I read to you guys before. It was 90 days. They changed it to 120 days. Mr. Luchini said there was no new members who signed up between the 90 and 120, so there was no harm, no foul. That actually doesn't matter because this actually changes things for the future as well. Notice requirements don't just pertain to this convention. But I am glad to hear that no members were affected for this year. That still doesn't cure the issue. Here is the revised language, which still isn't yet up on the website. In order to serve as a delegate from LPNM to the National Convention of the Libertarian Party, an individual must be a member of the Executive Committee, a member of the Central Committee, or a caucus member, meaning a dues-paying member, in good standing for 120 days preceding the state convention, at which the delegate is elected to serve at the National Convention. In the case of caucus members, meaning dues-paying members, the individual must have also provided 12 hours of volunteer service in the 12 months preceding the state convention, prorated. Now, what's interesting here about the 12 hours, this is very ambiguous. JJ, I would be I would be interested in your interpretation about what this means. The way I interpreted it and the way I think they mean the 12 hours of volunteer service prorated is that since this was passed, and because Mr. Luchini said that Mr. Askin would only need to perform 2 hours, I'm assuming he means because this was passed in January that they were prorating the number of volunteer hours, but it's susceptible to multiple interpretations. So let's say next year somebody joins 8 months prior to the state convention. Would it be prorated for that member as well? I think this is very unclear. Not that it really matters. This was just more curiosity on my sake. I think this is going to cause some... this is null and void to begin with, but let's say they actually pass this legitimately at some point. I would encourage them to word that a little differently because it's very unclear. All right, so let's continue. You would say based on the time of the member joining. You understand where I'm a little confused? And the reason why I think I would agree with you, JJ, because Roberts recommends that if this was just to apply to this year, it should have been a proviso rather than a something embodied in the bylaw. So I tend to think your interpretation is correct, but it's a little confusing to me. Yeah, I think you're correct. Okay, it says this change delegate seasoning requirements after any opportunity to fulfill them was allowed just 2 months before the state convention and added an additional burden for members who were already previously qualified under the seasoning requirements to fulfill in just 2 months and without proper notice as required by the Constitution and bylaws. It is further noted that without the Constitution and bylaws yet being changed on the website, they, went too fast. Went way too fast. 1 second here. Sorry about that. I use a trackball, and sometimes I get a little too eager with the trackball. Okay, without the Constitution and bylaws yet being changed on the website, they may simply come to the convention. Why is it doing this? Maybe let me make it smaller. Here we go. Believing they are qualified, only to be shocked to find out they are not. I anticipate that Mr. Luchini will state that they received an email notice about the proposed changes, but that is not the notice that they have a right to expect, as the Constitution and bylaws provide a completely different method and time frame for notice. Nor would they know if these proposals passed, as most normal people do not read minutes for the sheer pleasure of it, unlike me, because I'm not normal. These were done quickly and without proper notice. Why? Mr. Luchini's representations about no members being affected is simply untrue as stated as above, and further not necessary in order to object and nullify actions based upon failure to provide the notice required by the New Mexico governing documents. Absolutely no one could have been affected, which is not true here, and the objection would still be valid. And Mr. Askin personally can have no way of knowing who joined or did not join in any given time period. Neither can any other member. That is confidential information only in the possession of the governing body. Lastly, absolutely no justification was given, as detailed in the Constitution and bylaws, for what was the urgent need that is a prerequisite to even having a special constitutional convention. It seems specifically designed to exclude people who met the qualifications until this change was made. These remain very troubling issues, particularly since an LNC member is involved, and considering the prior complaint against Mr. Luchini regarding Arizona, the attempt of the former chair to engineer a coup in New Hampshire, and the current interference of an LNC staff member to change the delegate composition of Massachusetts. Whether Mr. Luchini wishes to agree or not, this amendment is null and void. It can easily be done with proper notice in the future if that is what New Mexico members wish to do. Tyler Askin, prepared by Parliamentarian Karen Ann Harlos, and Tyler signed it so that there would be no question that he approved this. Okay, let's go back to where we were. I don't think we actually disagree, JJ, though we might. I don't think the member has to agree what is urgent. I do think that the state board needs to tell the members what they felt was urgent. Even if it was that the Virgin Mary talked to them out of a slice of toast and said, you need to do this, it's urgent. That's subjective. That could be perfectly valid. But I do think if a member asks them, because their Constitution and bylaws requires it, that they have a right to know why the executive committee thought it was urgent. And the fact that that keeps being ignored leads to the very reasonable speculation that it was done to exclude certain people. And the fact is, members still don't know this according to the Constitution and bylaws, because they still haven't been changed on the website, and there's no notice of the state convention on the website. Bob McKay asks, will I be at the LP New Mexico convention to challenge this? No, but someone else might be. I've advised that the member to have a parliamentarian present. They could say COVID. They could say anything. I just want to know the reason. Though changing delegate requirements doesn't have anything to do with COVID, but they could, as I said, they could say Jesus told them to. But I don't know if anyone will be there to challenge it or not. I will not be there. I have a prior engagement on March 6th. I will be in Pennsylvania because I'm a member of the Libertarian Party of Pennsylvania, and I will be at their convention. I'm going to scroll up. My eyesight is really bad. I need to move this over a little bit so I can see it. Null and void, correct. Ryan S., what happens if the bylaws require a convention to be held within a time frame and requires notice, but notice isn't given timely? Does it become impossible to hold a valid convention? That's a lot will depend upon what the rest of the bylaws say. I can't really answer that without seeing bylaws. I can tell you that happened in Colorado on the year that we missed our notice by 5 days. They did not hold a convention that year, and all of the officers stayed in power for another year till we could hold a valid convention. I can't say that's what would happen in every state, but that's what happened in Colorado. Blair, get in touch with me. I would be interested in hearing your story. I did a whole show on the Vermont thing. You would know that if you were paying attention. Christian, you seem to be very butthurt against me. I'm not really going to be addressing insults. All right, but you're free to be here and chat. You notice that I haven't removed you, and I will not. I don't see anything else here I need to adjust. Let me see here before. Bob McKay, I keep hearing the LNC wants a vaccine or mask mandate for Reno. That is not true. I don't know who keeps saying that. That's not true, as far as I know. And then we talked about the prorating. I wouldn't consider Gary Johnson a fake libertarian. I adore Gary Johnson. He's a moderate. Not everyone has to be a radical. And Christian, I was retained to be on your turf by a member. I was retained as a professional. And I went and showed how it went against your bylaws. So you can do ipsit all you like, but unless you counter the things said, rather than just going, that's not an answer. Bob McKay says the LP needs to move on from Gary Johnson. Gary Johnson did a lot for this party. I like Gary Johnson. You're never going to hear me say anything bad about him. I don't agree with his bake the cake stuff, but I'm a fan. I'd love to see that article, JJ. Bob says, it wouldn't surprise me if the SAR Works want a mandate. That wouldn't surprise me either. But the LNC has given no indication that they want some kind of mandate. Dave Davis says it'll probably be up to Nevada. Now, this is where people might be getting confused, is there probably will be a mask mandate that Nevada imposes. There was a mask mandate at our last convention in Orlando. While I personally find that offensive, I wouldn't freak the hell out over that. What people might be getting confused with is, will the LNC pull out of the contract if a vaccine mandate is required by Nevada? That was always the issue. Or would they just say, too bad, so sad? There's no indication that that's what the LNC wants. I mean, maybe some of them in the back of their head think that would help their chances at re-election, but there is nothing official that, though, listen, I don't hesitate to say something bad, but that speculation I think is completely incorrect, whoever is saying that. Bill Weld was awful. He was beyond awful. Fuck Bill Weld. Okay, so I went through those responses there. So, about 90% of what I said today, Mama brought receipts. About 10% was speculation, and I let you know when the speculation was, but I think it was perfectly reasonable speculation, but I thought I was pretty careful in letting you guys know what was, in fact, speculation. And that's pretty much where we are at right now. I expect those correspondences will be posted publicly to the LNC list because Region 1 members have a right to know what their regional representative is doing. Now, Bob McKay says, what if the venue has a vaccine mandate? I think the LNC should get out of the contract for material change. They will not commit to that. That might be where some people are speculating, but I don't think that's necessarily a fair speculation. And Christian still hasn't yet explained how 15 days notice by email is the same thing as 30 days notice posted on the website. And I would like to know how you're justifying the fact that your state convention still isn't posted on the website, and it's past the notice requirement. If a member wanted to, they could challenge that whole convention. This particular member does not wish to do that. Some other member might. This member doesn't. So, that is about it, I think. I always give a few minutes if there's any further questions. But it's very easy to pass this delegate requirement for next time. Do it at a valid convention. It might even pass. I don't even think that I don't even particularly, as long as it's not done like within 5 months of a convention, think they're particularly bad requirements. I think having volunteer requirements is a good idea. The requirements themselves, I mean, your dues are kind of high, but they've been that way. I don't think they're particularly objectionable. It was how it was done and when it was done. And it was against your Constitution and bylaws. To keep just saying it wasn't is like a little kid going, show me how I'm wrong. Other than, because that doesn't prove anything. And the fact that you don't like me doesn't prove anything. I don't care. Banjo playing Bison says, don't listen to Blair. I doubt anyone tried to make New Mexico lose ballot access because they didn't nominate his daddy. I don't know. Maybe that's true. I've met Blair before. He seems like a nice guy. I can't say I know him terribly well. I think we've met 4 or 5 times, Blair. Not exactly sure. Maybe a little less. At least 3 times we've met. Seems like a perfectly decent guy, but again, don't know him all that well, but I'm more than willing to hear him out. Mark Davis, you are very welcome. Yeah, no, Christian will not provide shit because notice requirements. This is one of those things, like normally, like with the urgency issue, you get 10 parliamentarians in a room and you're going to have 50 different opinions. I've got a good question for you, JJ, by the way, though. But notice, You get 10 parliamentarians in the room, and not one of them is going to disagree on this notice issue. Not one. That is like the basic of the basics. Like, there is no question here. There is no gray area on that notice requirement. None. Some of the other opinions, some parliamentarians would disagree. But the fact that the failure to provide the bylaws required notice renders the action null and void is absolutely and utterly fact. And Mr. Emling, I'm sorry I mispronounced your name. I don't think I've ever heard it said out loud. I'm not mispronouncing your name on purpose. If I am mispronouncing it, probably doesn't know who you are, JJ. Doesn't know that you're a big-time badass of the parliamentary world. But he is. He won't. Well, JJ might say that, but he probably wouldn't say that of himself. I will say that of himself. He's a badass. But the National Convention parliamentarian Richard Brown would not disagree on the notice requirements anywhere. No parliamentarian would disagree on the notice requirements. That's like disagreeing that the sky is blue or that water is wet. So, JJ, I had a style committee meeting last night, and I want to shoot myself in the head. Why do I get on the style committees? Why? I love meetings and I love committees. Oh my God, never. I'm an ex officio. This is what's funny. I'm an ex officio member of the style committee because JJ, maybe you will be retained to go to the New Mexico convention. I can't be there. I would go if I could, but I can't. Plus, I think it would be more in the members' best interest to have somebody else because, as Christian so said, I agree. This isn't about me at all. This is about the member who has a concern in New Mexico. That is all this is about. It ain't about me. So, the style committee, Mike, I'm going to ask him about the hyphen. So I'm an ex officio member of the style committee by virtue of being the platform committee chair for the last platform committee in Colorado. The chairs of the bylaws committee and the platform committee are ex officio members of the following year's style committees. So we're going through our bylaws to fix grammar and style. And the word ex officio in our bylaws is hyphenated. And boy, did we have a battle royale over whether or not that word should be hyphenated. I want to kill myself. My argument was that it should be because Roberts hyphenates it. However, everywhere else and in every grammatical authority, apparently, on the planet, it says it shouldn't be hyphenated. Every dictionary says it shouldn't be hyphenated. The Chicago Manual of Style, which is our style guide, says it shouldn't be hyphenated. And, yeah. So, we did adopt the Chicago Manual of Style, but we also have adopted Roberts. And Roberts hyphenates it, and our style guide doesn't. No hyphen. Why does Roberts hyphenate it? Now, I want to make you laugh, JJ. Because you know how Mr. Hahnemann, with his insult to me, I'm beginning to love that man more and more. Because apparently, I thought he just said that sarcastic comment to me because he didn't like me. No. So, I'm probably going to paraphrase this. Mike, let me know if I got this wrong. So, I did a Google search and found out this was discussed on the Roberts Forum. And somebody was asking why Roberts has an error in it in hyphenating ex officio. And then somebody else said, Well, when ex officio is used as an adjective phrase, such as X is an ex officio member of the style committee, it takes a hyphen. When it's used as an adverbial phrase, as an X is a member ex officio of the style committee, then it doesn't. Okay, that was the argument made on the forum. So the original questioner said, well, maybe I should leave it to the experts on grammar then to decide this. And here's Hahnemann says, well, why don't you do that then? With that grumpy picture. I think I love him. I think I'm absolutely falling in love with him. So JJ says no hyphen. I'm on the side of the hyphen. I am fighting for the hyphen, but I will not be filing a minority report on the hyphen. In case you were worried, Mike, I will not be filing a minority report. Let it go. Let it go. But how long did we spend on that? 40 minutes? Oh, God, I want to die. Thank you, JJ. I appreciate it. All right. JJ has spoken. No hyphen. Roberts needs to be fixed. Roberts needs to be fixed. But I am still fighting you on that officer thing, Mike, just so that you know. But I will not be filing a minority report on the hyphen. Okay, let's just give it a few more minutes, see if there are, and I think I missed a super chat earlier. I think I got in a roll. Somebody, if I forgot, I'm scrolling up, because if I did and I forgot to thank you, that is rude, and I don't want to mix that. Because I got this weird notification on my screen, but it might... Yes, Dave Davis, I am so sorry. I did not see that earlier. I thank you so sincerely for the super chat. I thought I saw something, and you had... let me put this up here. You had said, Joe Walsh is a former Republican Congress critter from Florida that endorsed Biden. Okay. So that is strange. I wonder why Texas didn't get somebody to balance out Vaush that was like a Matt Walsh. I really thought when they said Walsh, it was Matt Walsh. Wouldn't that be worth seeing? Matt Walsh versus Vaush? Oh my God, I would get popcorn for that. I would get popcorn for that. No, I'm not going to do a minority report, Mike, on the colon. Not the colon. On the hyphen. And hello, Julian. Nice to see you. All right, everyone. I think that might be it. And I'll just let everyone observe the beauty of Christian Emling, the wannabe national chair, calling a grown-ass woman girl. Thank you, sweet cakes. All right, everyone. Let me give you about 2 more minutes to see if there are any other questions. And I see Blair is, and you guys are still having, I really don't want to cut off the discussion that's going on in chat as well. Blair is defending himself against certain charges, and I don't really want to cut off his opportunity to do that. Now, Blair, I don't know anything about what you're talking about, but and you may disagree with me here. I know Renota, like, not for voting or anything like that. Renota's a friend of mine. She did a lot of great volunteer work for the historical committee. Just would like to throw that out there since her name was mentioned. I do want to praise her for the volunteer work she had done for the historical committee. Who was it that I was just... Oh, I know who it was. I don't want to say their name because I don't want to drag this into the conversation. But I was just speaking with somebody earlier today who said somebody else who was a complete name they didn't recognize. That to them it was a no name announced for national chair. I wonder if that was Christian. Did you just announce today on Twitter, or did you announce or at least mention it today on Twitter? Because somebody had mentioned it. Yeah, Christian just keeps saying they've been following their bylaws and not addressing any of the points. That is so funny. Yes, JJ, Christian, did you guys give 30 days notice? And did you give 30 days notice for your state convention on the website as required by your bylaws? Easy to show me. We could pull up the website right. I have it. Hold on. Here we go. Direct me. Direct me in chat. Where can I find the notice on the website for that January 6th convention? Let's go back to events. And where can I find the notice for your state convention? Okay, here's January. I don't know. Maybe you're following the Will McVeigh school of notice, that it's white text on a white background, and that's notice. Let's see. Maybe if I highlight, I'll see it. Nope, I still don't see it. I don't see the notice. So yeah, show me you gave 30 days notice and I'll retract everything I said. Do we need to look at the bylaws again where it says 30 days notice on the website? Not 15 days by email? And I'm still looking for the notice for the state convention. Because now we're in February and it says 30 days. And today is February 9th. And I think, I could be wrong, that your convention is March 6th, which means you would have haven't given notice on your website by February 6th. Now, I would suggest you just get it up now because honestly, people are volunteers. You miss a few days. In the past, I would have been a big stickler about that. But again, this isn't up to me. It's up to New Mexico members and nobody might care. As I said, the member in question here is not challenging anything to do with the state convention. It's the special convention. Can't say what other members are going to do, though. Show me. You say you complied with the bylaws. I'm waiting. I'm on the website. Is this the wrong Libertarian Party of New Mexico website? Are there several? I mean, this looks like the official website to me. I see Mr. Mann and Mr. Luchini. That's a great picture, though, by the way. I don't care what anyone thinks. Oh, yeah, you're correct, because there's only 28 days. And yeah, Stephen, you got me there. I don't care what anyone thinks of these two men. That is a great picture. I love that picture. That's a very good picture. Very pleasant. Very welcoming. Too bad they weren't as welcoming to the new members who are wanting to join, but I do like that picture a lot. Still waiting. I'll give it a few minutes. Christian is so sure they complied with the bylaws, I'd like to see it. I asked Mr. Luchini. He told me that it was just 15 days and it was by email. So I don't know. Maybe you're disagreeing with Mr. Luchini. We'll give it a few minutes. I see Christians ignoring the question. We'll give it a few more. Should I play the Jeopardy music? Do 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 ba do 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 do. No answer? I didn't think so. Wasn't 30 days on. I didn't find it on Facebook either. But your bylaws say on your website, and let's just say Facebook would be considered your website. It wasn't 30 days. And I went and looked on Facebook and didn't find it, by the way. But I could be wrong. I hate frickin' Facebook. But Facebook is not the party website. And Facebook's a good place to post it if you only want boomers to go. And I'm on Facebook, so like I'm ragging myself here. All right, doesn't seem like we're going to get an answer. Oh, for the state convention. Gotcha. It's still supposed to be on the party website. But again, the state convention isn't in dispute by this member. No, Christian Emerald, I've heard of him, Blair. So I don't think so. I don't think you're correct there. I've seen his name around a bunch of times. We've had discussions before, Christian and I. Alrighty, well, it doesn't look like we're going to get an answer. The Ipsodixit didn't work, and now he's ignoring the question. Okay, everyone, well, I hope you have an awesome night, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Or will I? Tomorrow's Platform Committee meeting. I do invite you all to come to the Platform Committee meeting. It is open. It's supposed to be open to all party members, which it is, but I guess what I'm trying to say is we can't keep non-party members from being there as well. So whether you're a party member or not, you could get in. It does require pre-registration so that we don't have, the kids who are in the basement spamming across the screen thinking that it's funny. You can shoot me an email. I will send you the registration link. You can email me at pinkflameofliberty@gmail.com. I did send the information over to National to post. I don't know if they have. It's also on my public figure page. So, and the platform committee discussions are public. If you go to the footer of lp.org, look up subcommittees, go to platform committee, you will see the link for the public discussion group, and there is a notice of the meeting for tomorrow there. I would love to see you all there. We run very open meetings, and we do have opportunity for public comment that is related to the deliberations of the platform committee. So would love to see you there. Let me go back to my main screen here 1 second so I could just see y'all's lovely faces. So I hope you have a good night. Mi guapas de libertad. And let me find my closing screen thing here. Oh, and I haven't yet updated the patrons. So if you are the individual who just did up your patronage, I haven't yet changed the closing credits, but I will do that as soon as possible. It was very nice to see you all. Very nice to see you again, Blair. Hadn't seen you in a while. And I do hope we meet again soon. Have an awesome evening.
Given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians and choose to be an accountant because it's safe in a business, not because